my name is Nick. I am from MiSci. We are the Museum of Innovation and Science in Schenectady. Has anybody visited us before? We're the, if you've ever been to Schenectady, we're the museum way up on the hill. There's a train car at the bottom of the museum. So if you've ever been there, yep, usually that makes people remember. But we do all kinds of different science at MiSci, and I get to bring that science to a bunch of different places like schools and libraries. And today I get to share one of my favorite science activities, which we call Science Solutions, but we also sometimes call it the Science of Silly Putty. Now, how many of you have ever played with Silly Putty or seen it before, maybe in stores? Well, if you haven't seen it, when it's in the package, it kind of looks like this. They put it in a little egg, and when it's out of the package, it looks kind of like this. And you may have seen, even if it's not called Silly Putty, you may have seen something kind of similar to this before. But what makes Silly Putty really cool is that it's what we call a polymer. And it's really weird because it's long and stretchy like this and can be really flexible. But when I bunch it up together like this, what happens? Anybody know?
It gets smaller.
It gets small if I crunch it up like this, right? But also it kind of gets tough. I'm going to pass around this one and kind of feel how different the texture is when it's all bunched up together. And if you stretch it out, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, but it will still hold together until you stretch it all the way out, and eventually it'll break, but you got to stretch it pretty far. And then here's what it looks like in the packaging.
Sometimes it would make a bubble and it would make a snap sound.
It would. You can kind of get like a bubble gum snap.
Yes.
Copy the newspaper. Yes.
That's right.
That's what we used to do.
Now we call it a polymer because it's a bunch of, has anybody heard the word molecules before? Anybody know what a molecule is? Maybe you've heard it's like a water molecule or some kind of molecule.
Hey buddy, why don't you, Peyton, can you pass it on to somebody else please, bud? We don't want to open it.
Yeah, we want to leave that one in the package, but there is the other one coming around right now so you can see what it looks like inside the egg.
Oh, that's what I have the package and you keep that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So a polymer is a bunch of molecules kind of chained together. And I like to use the example of paper clips. So if you think in terms of really teeny tiny molecules are so small you can't even see them. You can't even see them under a microscope, but you can see polymers, which are a bunch of them chained together. And just like our Silly Putty, when I kind of let it loose like this, it's very flexible. I can kind of move it around in all sorts of different ways. But when I pull it tight, it strengthens up. And actually, I'd have to pull really hard to split this apart. So our Silly Putty is a great example of a polymer. Now today, we are going to be making our own Silly Putty because we're going to be making our own polymers. So we're going to be doing what we call chemistry. Does anybody know what chemistry is? You're all going to end up taking it, I think, in, if I remember right, 10th or 11th grade. But chemistry, does anybody know what you do in a chemistry class or in a chemistry lab? And you want to take a guess? Go ahead.
You mix chemicals together.
That's right. So chemists mix different chemicals and materials together. And we're not going to go over all of these words. We're actually just going to go over the first couple. But does anybody, do I have any readers in here who can read the first one here, the first word where it says chemist? Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Me?
Yep.
Me, chemist, a scientist who specializes in chemistry.
Excellent.
They study at
Atoms.
what?
Atoms.
Elements, and how chemicals interact with one another.
Very good, excellent. So it's a scientist who specializes in what we're going to do today. That's chemistry. They study atoms, which are teeny tiny building blocks that make up everything, elements, and chemicals. All right, and the only other word that I want to look at, can I have another reader for the second word we're going to do today? Go ahead.
Experiment. A test done in order to learn something or to discover whether something works or is true.
Excellent, and we are going to do a bunch of experiments today. So in order to do those, I'm actually going to have you flip the paper over. Thank you very much. If we look on the back side here, we're going to do 3 different experiments today. We call them experiments or trials. So if we look at the very top up here, we have a bunch of ingredients to work with today, and we're going to do 3 different chemistry experiments to try to see how those ingredients work with one another. So the first one, for example, if I look at the very top here, trial number 1, it says we need talk about our different ingredients we're going to use today. So how many of you have used glue in the classroom before? Probably everybody at this point. So we're going to be using glue, which is going to help all of our slimes stick together. We're going to be using just regular old H2O, regular old water from the sink here. We are going to be using soap powder a little bit. How many of you have ever seen this before? Maybe at home in the bathroom. This is what we call borax solution, and basically it's used for laundry detergent. You pour some in with your laundry, it keeps it clean, it stops it from smelling. And the last thing we have to use is what we call a borax solution. A solution is just when we mix two things together. So borax solution is just what you see in that box right there with some water as well. That's what we've got in this bottle. Those are going to be our 4 ingredients. Now let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, is that right? Okay. All right, so what I would like to do is if we can get everybody at one of these 3 tables kind of split up evenly. So I think we should have about 4 per table. Yep, so if you want to stay right there, that's fine. So we should have about 3 or 4 at each of these 3 tables. Make sure you bring that sheet with you. Come on in, folks. Looks like we've got a seat at that table over there. I think we've got a seat over here at this table as well. So, folks, if you want to pick one of these tables here, we've got a seat right there. We've got a seat over here. We can grab more chairs if you need. And a seat over here if anybody wants one. And it looks like we have a chair over there as well. Looks like we got room at that end of that table there.
It's okay. Okay, mine's your seat, John.
I tell you.
Alright, so we got a seat over here, seat over there. Take your pick. Take your pick. Alrighty. Okay, so my friends who are just joining us, we are about to actually do a little bit of an experiment, or a few experiments. We are going to be making our own silly putty today. So I'll pass out a couple more of these, but these are going to show us what ingredients we need. Please raise your hand if you still need one of these pieces of paper. If you haven't gotten one yet, please raise your hand. Just so I can make sure everybody's got one. Here you are. And over here. All right, so let's take a look at our first trial, our first experiment we're going to do at the very top. Number 1, we need 1 tablespoon of glue. How many of you have ever used a tablespoon before? Maybe at home if you're cooking, very good, or baking. So a tablespoon is our larger of the 2 spoons, and every table is going to get 1. So this is what our tablespoon looks like. Now, when we mix up our experiments, we're going to take turns passing around each of the different spoons, so everyone's going to have a chance to add a different ingredient. So we've got our tablespoons, and then what other kind of spoon have you used? If you've done baking or cooking, you use a tablespoon and a teaspoon. Very good. So we're going to need a teaspoon as well. So every table will have 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon. And when we look at our ingredients list, let's take a look. Number 1, we're going to need a tablespoon of glue, a tablespoon of water. We're not going to add any soap powder for this first one, but we are going to need a tablespoon of soap solution. Remember, our solution is just what's in here, our laundry detergent, mixed with water, which we have in this little bottle right here. So we're just going to use our tablespoon for the first one. So whoever has the tablespoon to start, I'm going to come around with glue in just a moment. And we're going to be pouring all of these things into this little plastic cup to start with. And remember, this is just our first of 3 experiments we're going to do. And we're going to see how each of our slimes or our silly putty ends up being different. So I'm going to come around. Please choose someone right now to be the first person to have the tablespoon. Remember, everyone's going to have a chance to pour because we're going to do 3 different experiments. So whoever has the tablespoon, please be ready. And then I also need someone else at the table to hold the cup in place while that person is pouring using their tablespoon. So I'm going to come around, and if you can hold that right above the cup, so if we overflow it all, we want to make sure we try not to get any glue on the table.
We're not gonna need that
If we can
one,
help it.
because we'll only need teaspoons.
All right, and you're going to pour that in, and I'm also going to pass around some stirring sticks, which you can use to help clean off your spoon and to kind of stir everything inside of the cup together. All right, who's got my tablespoon over here? All right, and then can one of you hold the cup in place for her? Perfect, now you know what, I'll come over here. And then, yep, and if you can hold that spoon right on top, perfect. Yep, and you guys are doing a great job, exactly like that, and maybe a little more than a tablespoon, that's okay. And you're gonna pour that in, and you can use the stick as well to get any extra glue out of the tablespoon. All right, and then just hold that right above. Got this. And tablespoon, pour that in, and you can use the stirring stick to get any extra sticky glue out. So that's our first ingredient. All right, now looking at our table, what is the next ingredient we need to add? If we look at the very top, what comes next? Water. How much water? 1 tablespoon. So I've got a little measuring cup with some water. So whoever's got the tablespoon now, this should be somebody different who hasn't had a chance yet. So you're going to scoop. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. And then dump that in. And then whoever's got the stirring stick, the popsicle stick, you're going to start stirring that together.
All right, who's gonna have the tablespoon?
So to figure out now who's going to have the popsicle stick.
That's okay, they're gonna rinse it off water.
Alrighty. So you need somebody to hold the cup, somebody to hold the spoon, and then somebody ready with the stirring stick.
So violence into bubbles.
Alrighty.
That's what half the line.
Very good. Okie dokie, folks. Now looking back at our table, what's the last ingredient we need for this mixture? Soap solution, and 1 tablespoon of it. So again, we're not using our teaspoon yet. So somebody else pass the tablespoon around. So someone who hasn't had a chance before yet.
And then he can stir.
Yeah, they're not always going to look pretty. But we're going to see how all of them are different from each other, and you are going to need to stir it really well using your stirring stick. All right, and pour that in, and then you're going to have to really give it a good stir. All right, pour that in, and again, how it's really going to come together, you got to give it a really good stir. And I can already hear some kind of grossed out noises coming out, which means it's working. It means you guys are doing exactly, ooh, wow, that's a good one. It does kind of look like that, right? When you've gotten the milk carton in the back of the fridge for a little too long, comes out looking like that. All right. So this is just our first attempt. Now, what are some things, as good chemists, as good scientists, we got to make sure that we are looking at our results. So does anybody have an observation? Anybody notice anything about this particular slide? Raise your hand if you have something to observe about it. What'd you notice? My friend over here, what did you say it looked like? Okay, so one of our friends here observed that it looks like expired milk. What else would you say about it? Yeah. Kind of fluffy. Okay. So a little bit fluffier than what we saw with our silly putty at the beginning. Anything else? Any other observations? Yes.
The soap and the water make the glue pull together to be a tighter batter.
Very good. So the soap and water are kind of pulling together to keep it all. Go ahead.
It looks like dipped cotton.
Like dipped cotton?
Cotton.
Yep, good. So we can kind of compare it to other things that we've seen before or are familiar with. That's a good way to make an observation. All right, let's move on. So put that cup aside for the moment. We're going to move on to our second experiment, which means I'm going to give you each another cup. So put that one off to the side for now. I'm going to give you a fresh cup and a fresh stirring stick as well. And who can tell me what is the first ingredient we're going to need in our experiment number 2, trial number 2? What do we need? Anybody know? Check the table.
I need 1 tablespoon.
So raise your hand.
Tablespoon of what?
1 tablespoon of glue.
1 tablespoon of glue. So just like with our first one, I'm going to come around with the glue. Please have somebody ready with the tablespoon. And somebody ready to hold the cup. And again, you can use your stirring stick to kind of get any extra glue out from the solution. Sometimes it does stick, of course, to exactly. But for us today, it's going to be our stirring stick and also kind of our ungluing stick, which is nice. All right, and dump that in. All right.
Scrape it.
Yep, and you can use that stirring stick to kind of scrape any extra glue. We want to make sure we get as close to a full tablespoon as possible. There we go. All right. All right, now who can tell me what is our next ingredient that we need? Look at our table. What comes next? Somebody said water. Did anybody catch how much? 1 teaspoon. Now we got to carefully read because if we put in too much, if we put in a tablespoon, it's going to not give us the result we want.
We're going to use a teaspoon now.
So now we're going to use our teaspoon. Remember, the teaspoon is the smaller spoon. So we only need a little bit of water. Yep, dump it in. And use the stirring stick to stir it together. All right, who's got that teaspoon ready? All right. Can you hold the cup? Can you hold the cup in place? Thank you. That's a little bit extra. Okay. Yeah, who's got the teaspoon? All right, perfect. Yeah, hold the cup. Perfect. And dump that in, and then whoever's got the stirring stick, you're up next. Okay. Now, if we look at our table, we are not going to use the soap solution this time. This one's going to be a little bit different. We are going to use the soap powder. So we're going to use it straight from the box. We do not need to add water like we did with our soap solution. So we are going to be adding a teaspoon. So again, the smaller spoon. I'm going to come around with the box. And whoever's got the teaspoon, you're just going to take a spoon out of there. Perfect. You can probably add a little bit more. All right, and then get this to pass it over so we can use the stirring stick. All right, who's got my teaspoon ready? Perfect. All right, now for this one, can you take a big scoop out of that box right there? If you can get in there. Oh yeah, that's perfect. All right, and then dump it all in there. And then stirring stick, you're gonna have to stir that up real good. So, who's my teaspoon? All right, what you're gonna do for this one, you have to make it. Yep.
So slimy.
And yep, dump that in, and then stirring stick that up. All right. Okay, folks, now stir that up good. And let's see if we get any difference between our stir it up really good.
Stay there.
What did you think about this slime? Is it the same? Is it different? Different. What did you notice about this one? It's not as liquidy. Very good. What's that? It's harder. Good, that's hardened more than the other one. Any other observations from over here? What you notice? Go ahead. So good. It kind of breaks off into little pieces. That little slimy, gluey piece. It does look like a big ball of sugar. That's a good way to put it. What's that? You're touching a solution. You're touching a glue. So what did you guys notice about what's different about the new one? Thicker? Less thick, and that's something we heard from over here too. So less liquidy, kind of thicker, more dense. Very good. All right, let's move on to our final experiment of the day. So what do we need to start? 2 tablespoons of glue. That's right. So I'm going to come around with 1 more cup and 1 more stirring stick. Kind of like packed snow. All right. All right, folks, we're going back to tablespoons. Have your tablespoon ready. That's the big one. And remember, this time, 2. That's number 1. Perfect. What did I miss? Oh, that's true. That's something we could add, right? You could add like food coloring or food dye. You could make it. And dump it in. All right, guys, I'm coming over with spoons, good tablespoon for the glue. We're going to do 2 this time. All right, that's 1. That's all right. And 2. Okay, and dump that in. And you can use the stirring stick to get any extra glue off. All right, ready? It is tricky to figure that out. All right. All right, let's check back with our ingredients. What do we need next? Very good, 4 teaspoons of water. So I'm going to come around with the water. Please have the teaspoon ready. We're going to do it 4 times. Whenever you're ready, all right? Alright, and remember you can take that stirring stick, stir it all up. Alright, and remember we're going for 4 teaspoons this time. Alright.
So this is the first experiment they did. And this is the second.
Alright, and stirring stick that up. Alright, got the teaspoon.
Yeah, it looks like the
The soap solution
is our final ingredient for the day. We're going to be adding 4 more teaspoons, this time of the solution, borax solution.
You need that.
And look, the glue got off my hand. Yep, and then you pick it.
Only one way to find out. All right, and you're going to have to give that one a big stir. Sounds good. There's 1. 2. All right, and then pass it over. Sounds good. All right. Ready? And 1. All right, we got 4, and then stir 6. All right, all ready over here.
Oh, look how different it is already.
Okay, and then whoever's got the stick. Stir it up. Stir it up
It looks
good.
like melty mozzarella, guys.
Oh, wait, it sounds like homemade mott.
It looks like you're making mozzarella cheese.
This one you gotta stir up a lot. You gotta add a lot of ingredients. Whoa.
That's pretty cool, guys.
Oh my god, that's
What does it feel like?
feels like so.
Feels like what?
Whoa.
Yes, right?
All right, folks.
It's exactly like homemade
What did
mozzarella.
you observe about the final slime? Wet and sticky, even for slime. That's saying a lot, right? What else did we notice? How is this slime different than the other ones? What do you guys think? It's just right? Good. Excellent. So it's kind of like a bouncy or like a squish toy. And that's because this is very close to the recipe that they used for those. So that's a great observation. What do you guys think? Whoa. Like soap? Oh, like salt. Oh, okay. So maybe you felt a little bit of the tiny bits of the borax solution in there. Very cool. So I'm going to get to that in just a minute.
Now it's just taking up.
All right, folks, now before we conclude our activity today, I just had a couple questions. Number 1, did anyone have a favorite of the 3 solutions of the ones that you made? Which one do you think? Put up one finger if 1 was your favorite, 2 for 2, or 3 for 3. Third was the last one was 3? Okay, so it looks like a lot of 3s. Okay, good. So it looks like there were some fans in each of them. Now, I did have somebody ask a question, which was, can we take this home? So how this is going to work, I'm going to pass around an individual cup for each person. And what I'd like for you to do is to split up each of these solutions you have in front of you. So if you have 5 people at your table, you're going to have to split up each of the blobs into 5 smaller blobs. So everyone gets to take home a tiny sample of each one. So everyone's going to get a little bit, and you're going to put all of those samples together in your sample. Everybody gets a little bit of all 3. So you got to make sure there's enough for everybody to take a little bit.
If you take it out of the water,
Like it's small.
and like dry it off, and now it will become that.
Will become so the third one definitely. Yeah, the third one is kind of the one that's kind of closest to that
The
slime.
second one is snap.
Yeah, the second one is more kind of bubble.
Oh no. I got the video. That's one reaction.
All right, folks, I'm going to come around with tops for each of those. So if you want to bring your samples home, you can of course put a top on your cup.
Put some water.
I put your number one.
All right.
Shah, don't mix it up. Shah, we have to keep the sample separately. With the number one with you. Take it out.
Alrighty. And once you've got your samples, you can put the top on so that you don't lose them.
You're gonna get one more. There you go. Now you can put the top on one. Go ahead. You can put the top on now. You got them all. Good job, guys.
Looks like they're going around.
This is yours to take home.
Combine them all together. Oh, I was wondering.
Are you excited? Give me some space.
All right. Okay, folks, does anybody have any last questions for me on slime, on the museum, on anything that we've done today? See a hand up over here. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank all of you guys for joining me in this activity today. I hope you'll come and see us at MiSci Educator Nick, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.